17 days. This is the longest that I've went without uploading in like a year, something like that. The Whadasha channel has remained inactive, and that has been completely intentional. For the last 17 days, yes, 17 days, I took the time to read all of Shakura in 2025. For a long time, I was living in this series. Wake up Shakura, eat Shakura, background work Shakura, all of it Shakura. Shakura, Shakura, Shakura. It has been a ride. Now, let me give you guys some backstory before we actually start this video. It's been a while, so I'm sure you guys want me to yap a bit and all that. Why did I start working on a Shakura video? How did this happen? Now, making a Shakura video was not actually something that I planned. It was more so something that just happened. For a long time, I couldn't avoid this series, no matter where I went. As most of you guys know, 6 months ago, I made a video talking about the manga, and now everywhere I look, I see Shakura. I see people in my comments talking about how the web novel is peak, even on videos that have nothing to do with Shakura. I see people on Twitter going crazy about the most recent chapters, and I was just seeing this story everywhere. I felt like I had no choice, so I started reading this Yuri web novel to see what was up. So today, we're going to be talking about my initial thoughts after pretty much catching up with the story, but before we begin, I want to make one thing clear. While reading, and hell, even before reading, it became clear to me that Shakura isn't a story you can just read once and make a definitive video, at least for me. So please don't view this as the Whadasha Shakura video. I don't have enough experience with this story to provide statements and takes that I'm 100% confident in, which is why we're going with first impressions. Later down the line, I can almost promise you guys that there will be more nuanced Shakura content, but for now, we're starting with first impressions. This video is a long time in the making, so I hope you guys enjoy. Oh yeah, make sure you like if you want future Shakura content. Seriously, my birthday is this month. Go for it. Help me out. The 29th, by the way. We're getting really close. With that said, please enjoy. So I'll be completely honest. When I first started reading Shakura, I didn't really see what exactly about the story was so peak. So the dynamic was a little bit different. It wasn't like it was anything out of this world. You know, the concept of money exchange in manga and anime isn't something foreign, even in the Yuri department. You have stories like a Yuri story about a girl who insists it's impossible for two girls to get together, that time I was blackmailed by the class's green tea bleep, and probably more that I don't know of, but the point is, this story was what I felt to be a usual flavor, though quite strange at times. In the start, nothing really stood out. And in full honesty, those remained my thoughts for quite some time. I won't even lie to you guys. I haven't said this yet, but 4 months ago, I read the first 120 chapters and I wasn't satisfied, so I dropped the story. I didn't see what was interesting about it. I gave it a chance. I didn't like it. But ironically, I seem to have dropped the story at the best part. Maybe not best part, but more so the transitional part into what the story will later evolve into. That's kind of where I left it off without realizing. From about chapter 120 onward, the story goes through very drastic changes in almost every single department. For starters, the 5,000 yen exchange is tossed aside. You could even argue that the very fabric of this story, the exchange, the one thing keeping Miyagi and Sendai together, is tossed aside, which creates an intense atmosphere that persists throughout the remaining portion of the story. Miyagi and Sendai need to learn how to coexist without the use of money. They will need to figure out what exactly they should be, what exactly they need to be going forward. So they decide to just be roommates. Or to be more specific, as this is very important, Sendai herself decides that what they'll be going forward are roommates. From the start of university all the way to the end, that is what they'll cling to. That is the label that will define them, and no matter what, will not be broken. In theory. That in theory part is like very important because this shit gets broken every other week. Now, this is probably where I got hooked at the story. This label transition, at least to me, was very engaging. And as you can expect, like I kind of alluded towards a minute ago, it's something that gradually erodes over time. It's something that proves to be a problem, especially for our girl Sendai, who apparently cannot keep her hands to herself, or her thoughts to herself, or her lips to herself, or really anything. Look, Sendai's cooked. Okay, we know this. Before anyone, that label ironically eats away at Sendai first, despite her being the one to introduce that stability into their lives. She's the first one who recognizes her feelings, who recognizes that they want to be more, not just roommates, not people who have to exist under the concept of an exchange, but lovers. However, as we established, that label is something that can't be tossed aside that easily. While Sendai clings to that label with one hand, Miyagi clings to it with two. That's the sort of character that Miyagi is. She can't walk into the bleak future uncertain of what awaits. She needs some form of stability, some idea of control to exist. Labels, exchanges, they're all necessary to Miyagi. And when you read the story for yourself, you'll notice that there's such a unique tension created by Miyagi's needs versus Sendai's. It's not as easy as Sendai just waiting long enough to confess, hoping that Miyagi will reciprocate her feelings. Without stability, Miyagi will run away. Even if there's a slight possibility that Miyagi will reciprocate, Sendai doesn't want to take that risk. That fear of rejection paralyzes her, and all she can do is swallow those feelings. Those desires, that love she feels for Miyagi, she wants to store it away until Miyagi feels the same way. But still, it's not quite that simple. Will Miyagi ever feel the same way? Because as long as they're just roommates, a time to confess will never come. That's the anxiety that I think pulls a lot of people towards Shakura. For so long, Miyagi and Sendai's relationship is so fragile. With Sendai's feelings occasionally spilling over, it feels like one wrong move would be enough to shatter everything. One wrong slip, word, and everything is gone. The whole story is about timing, atmosphere, restraint, and gradually breaking through the past one step at a time. I can't even count the amount of times where I'd be reading Shakura at like 2, 3 a.m. and Sendai's feelings would almost explode, causing me to sit up and lock in. And that's one thing that I really wanted to highlight in this video. When Shakura makes you feel, it really does make you feel. As long as you are even slightly invested in the story, the narrative will move you. That's something I can promise. And you know, it sounds like such a simple thing to say. A story moving you, that should be like natural, right? But it's not. Okay, these days, at least for me, it's very rare for a story to have that sort of impact on me. I'm sure you guys may feel the same way. But the interesting thing that I haven't quite highlighted yet, that I really wanted to talk about in this video, are the characters. I know for a fact that everyone experiences Shakura differently. That was part of the reason why I set out to experience this story and make this video. Some people resonate with one aspect of the story while others cling to an entirely different part. I don't think that there's just one lens you could use to describe the appeal behind Shakura, simply because of how varied all the opinions surrounding the story are. On almost every single chapter, people have constant civil debates surrounding the ideas and motives behind either Miyagi or Sendai. And I just think that's kind of a testament to my point here. Nobody experiences the story quite the same, and it has a different appeal to everyone. And while it was no doubt interesting seeing all the pulls people had towards this story, for me it had to be the characters. That's where I found myself going, shit. Were the comments actually right with Shakura peak? I don't want to highlight every character. I think that everyone will get dedicated videos at some point. But for now, I want to take a closer look into Sendai Hazuki. Throughout my time reading, I came to not necessarily love Sendai, but rather I found myself interested in the sort of character that she is. Now, before I started reading, I often saw people highlight how down bad she is throughout the story, which I get it. She's extremely a hornball, like anything past chapter 200, maybe even before that, and she's beyond cooked. But there's so much to this character that I just haven't seen literally anyone talk about, which is insane. Sendai as a character is so disconnected from the world around her. Past around like chapter 150, you start noticing that as her thoughts start focusing more and more on Miyagi and her feelings for her, you start seeing less and less of the world around her. It's not the usual love that you typically see in these stories by any mean. It's more so a mix of obsession and disconnection. But the most interesting part has to be how it's portrayed. You'd think that Sendai's disconnection is something that would happen over time, but that's not necessarily the case. Since the beginning of the story, Sendai has been such a disconnected individual. If you want proof of that, take a look at her relationship with Umina. She doesn't hang out with Umina because she necessarily likes her, she hangs out with her because of her status. If she likes the things that Umina likes, if she rides her coattails in the shadows, she'll breeze through high school life. If she likes the things that the people around her like, she can get by. What does it matter what she herself likes? What does it matter what she herself dislikes? That's always been the Sendai mindset and, by extension, philosophy, but as the story progresses and that focus is instead switched onto Miyagi, you really see how amplified it is, and it's so interesting. The concept of like and dislike does not register in Sendai's mind the same way it would register in anyone else's, and that's due to all the mask wearing, that's due to all the assimilation, all the blending in, all the people pleasing. In pursuit of that, she loses her individuality. Now, this section of the video was reworked and it deviates a little bit from the original script, but there was a quote in the original that I think absolutely needs to be read, spoken by Sendai herself to put a little bit more of this into context. In her own words, "I have always played the role of Sendai Hazuki, a person who can easily live among many people. Now that I am a college student, it continues, but I never intended to play a role that deviated from the real me as much as I did back in high school." Pre-Miyagi, nobody really mattered to her, and without saying it, I think that Sendai alludes towards that a lot in this clip, especially stating how her change in high school was unintentional. She didn't mean to be that far from her true self. It's so compelling because before Miyagi, Sendai was nothing and she had nothing. Miyagi gradually illuminates her world, giving birth to never before seen feelings, emotions, thoughts, desires. It's no understatement to say that everything she is, everything she will be, is thanks to Miyagi, and likewise with Miyagi as well. They both bleed light into what never was, becoming what will be, changing the course of their lives day by day, all through many events over the span of 400 chapters. Seeing the gradual crumble of the roommate's label, the gradual pieces that these characters share from time to time, and above all, the gradual increase in feelings over the story is so surreal to witness. Even though it's been 21 days, I feel like so much has happened. And even as I'm writing this, I can't lie, I'm missing Shakura. I really can't wait for the next few chapters. Chapter 400 was amazing, and the story is at such an interesting point right now. Now, I wouldn't be Whadasha if I didn't tell you that all this comes at a cost. 100%, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, this story drags sometimes. Okay, there are points where it feels like it's a struggle to keep reading. I'll be completely honest. It's 400 chapters, so just like literally everything else that's long-standing, you will eventually reach a point where it feels like the story drags. That's not a knock to Shakura. I don't want people to take it as a knock to Shakura. It's just something to keep in mind. And it isn't even like this is a flaw in and of itself. The way Shakura is built, it's made to be a story that is supposed to drag, right? While I feel like it does drag in some areas, for the most part, everything is fair. The high chapter count, the prolonging of some events, confession, the build-ups, the payoff, all of it adds so much to the story. In the moment, you may not enjoy waiting to see the payoffs of some events, but I promise you, when you reach those payoffs, you will understand why the build-ups was so necessary. Now, at this point, it more so seems like I'm trying to convince you guys to read the story, which I'll admit, I kind of am, and I have a reason. When you go to read the web novel and you see that giant block of chapters 0 through 400, it feels intimidating. I think most people will give up on Shakura before they even get the chance to experience it because of how long it actually is. And I really do believe that. I remember while I was reading, there was this one person who said they were on like chapter 50, but they skipped ahead all the way to like chapter 300, and they were like struggling to, you know, just intimidating. You know, you want to see the payoffs, but the journey there is tedious at times, right? I wholeheartedly don't think that anyone watching this will regret reading Shakura. In those 400 chapters, you will find at least one thing that resonates with you. I can almost guarantee that. There's so much packed in this story. Now, the video is going to end there with me giving you guys that final little talk and then giving my end thoughts. But I wanted to take one more glimpse of this story from the inside looking out and just explore this series a little bit. While Shakura has captured the hearts of many in 2025 with its interesting developments, manga adaptation, and even anime adaptation, I think it's very important to realize that this burst didn't just happen, right? Though Shakura seems to be making the headlines this year in the Yuri space, this story didn't just appear. The novel has been published since 2020, 5 years, soon to be 6. That's over half a decade. For 6 years, Usa Hanada has been building this world, keeping a consistent pace and gradually expanding that as time went on. Going into this story, I had no idea that Shakura had been a thing for this long. I noticed that while reading, around every 100 chapters or so, maybe longer, Usa Hanada's style definitely changes. They aren't explosive changes, more so stylistic changes here and there, all keeping the core tone that defines Shakura. And it's just so impressive how this story has grown alongside its author. The rise of Shakura in 2025 is not only deserved, but it was inevitable. I genuinely think that this story was a goldmine, simply waiting for not only the internet, but the world to recognize its dormant potential. Usa Hanada, if you watch this, I am so incredibly proud of you, and I want you to know that you deserve everything that comes your way. I think it's very important to make sure that all these Yuri authors, no, not even just Yuri authors, all authors, everyone are reminded that they are appreciated. When you're in the heat of the moment trying to meet a deadline, or when you're in the heat of the moment in general, I think you tend to forget that. Forget that there are people who appreciate your work and understand your work to a certain degree. After a while, things really can start just feeling meaningless, like what am I doing this for? So taking a moment to appreciate the author behind this, I think that's necessary. This story has so much work put into it. In summary, after 4 months, I, Whadasha, agree that Shakura is peak, and I definitely think that you should go read if you have the time. If you simply don't have the time, then I recommend you to just keep up with the manga adaptation. While it's obviously not the ideal way to consume this media, in my opinion, it is the most time-friendly way as of now. Over these next few months, I will be thoroughly keeping up with Shakura, and I will be, trying to hone my thoughts a little bit more so I can make some more nuanced videos on characters and maybe even themes that resonate in this story. I really do want to make some more Shakura content for you guys. I apologize for going silent while working on this video. I wanted this to be sort of a surprise for you guys. Following this, we will return to the usual schedule, which is at least once a week. But I'd be lying if I said that this whole bi-weekly thing didn't grow on me. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to fluctuate between weekly and bi-weekly. I think that's a fair time frame for me. I've always tried to operate under a week schedule, but, I found that to be kind of stressful sometimes. Again, thank you all for watching. I also want to briefly thank all my members. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, especially if you want more Shakura content. Let's get this video to minimum. Let's get this video to 200 likes whenever. If we get 200 likes, then I will work on a Shakura video ASAP. If not, then I won't. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.